Alright guys, we are back above 2600. This is not going to be a how-to video. This is going to be me showing you the first game I played today online and then the last game I played today online to cross 2600. I went on a nice little win streak, don't mind if I do. And sometimes that's all it takes. Last 6 months I was in a little bit of a slump because I'm kind of like a vagabond, but finally I've been settled for a month and I plan to be settled for much longer. And good things happen when you're not as scatterbrained as you always are, I would say. Now, there's no magic potion to cross 25, 2600. It's not a how to video. If it was, everybody would be a grandmaster. Just read books. Don't keep playing when you're on a losing streak. You gotta have some luck involved, so I hope you're lucky. And yeah, study as much as you could. That's basically it. So first game I'm on against an IM. As you can see, I was 25-57. I played about 10 games. I think I drew one, and I either lost one or two and won 8, something like that. At Kramnik, check my recents. On that also, I don't really pay attention to it, but in my opinion, like as long as you have a clear conscience, you're chilling. So if someone accuses you and you didn't actually cheat, then you're fine, right? Like in life, people try to ruin your life. If you have a clear conscience and you didn't do it, then who cares what people think? That's kind of my attitude towards it. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. I don't know. He was a very good chess player at one point. He probably still is. But we get an O'Kelly variation by Black over here. Okay, the O'Kelly I have no respect for because I play the Grand Prix and I like to go bishop to b5 to trade off the bishop for the knight. So when they go a6, wasting a whole pawn move to stop that. I mean, I know it's also to go b5, but typically I like getting extra aggressive. But I was like, okay, I'm going to play a little calm over here. Queen e2, I love this move. The point is that if they go b4, then you have knight to d1. And then you route it over to f2 and it helps promote g4. This is how I like playing. He did not overextend just yet. He went knight c6, and okay, we both kind of just got our pieces where we want. So I took this. I was like, okay, I know I'm not supposed to take that, but this looks like a weird position where it went a little differently than it usually goes. So I was like, okay, I'll just deal with it. I'll take it, go knight d1. I know these doubled pawns are good for black, so here I knew I would be, worse. He goes h5. It makes sense. He's trying to deter me from castling. I ain't scared of no flank pawns. Knight to f2, guarding g4, again, guarding e4, and just getting my knight off d1. I mean, it did not belong there. It was just there temporarily. It's a route. Okay, bishop to c5, aiming in on this diagonal. I'm just going to breeze through these games. We solidify these pawns, right? The more locked the structure, the worse the bishop pair is. So I castle, queen to b6, setting up the battery, and then I strike with f5. I'm like, okay, his king's still in the center of the board. The one thing I have on him is I'm castled. I'm going to open up my dark squared bishop and just pose some questions. So he castled queenside, right? People hesitate when they are getting attacked in the center, I suppose. And then I thought I was clever here. I took the e pawn and then I went knight h3. I'm like, ooh, knight g5, fork. That's how basic my thinking was. No, but I also considered knight f4. Here, I really thought he was going to go e5. I was going to snag the pawn, and I thought I was, chilling here. I have g4, knight g3. I suppose he's a little bit better here. But he went g5, which just makes no sense. I took the pawn, and now the base of the pawn chain, right? f6 is very weak. f5. I don't know if he blundered these pawns or if he was like, I have 2 open files on your king. But I'm not really one to see ghosts much of the time. In fact, I'm like, come at me, bro. Even if there's no ghosts and it's a great attack, I just like getting attacked. Pretty odd. Bishop to f4, putting the king in the box, right? Thank gosh, this queen is guarding that knight. We get takes on e4, a switch, knight to f6, forking them. Then he throws in a switch, taking my pawn. Do you take with the queen or the pawn? Well, remember, you want this pawn solidified in the long term, so you take with the pawn. Now you open up his king on the c file. There's pins there. His pawn is blockaded. Life is good. He takes my bishop. I take his bishop, and he missed something here. He actually had to lose the rook. Do you guys see why? He resigned after the next move. Remember, the board is a long board. Queen to a8, and that is just checkmate because the knight guards d7, the bishop guards c7, the queen has to go back to b8. Queen takes, and he resigned. So that's game one. Now, the cool thing about game two, okay, so they played the Pirts, and I was like, I'm feeling this Grand Prix setup. So I was just like, I'm going to go knight c3, f4. Now, against the Pirts, I play it like a Grand Prix, but I like to passively put my bishop on e2. Sometimes I put it on g2 if I feel that way. Chess is an emotional game if you're not the best at it, and so I just choose to go bishop e2. Castles. It's like an equal game. That's all I ever want. And I go queen to e1. So the thing I like about this setup with the bishop on e2 is I know that they're going to be playing for a knight on d4. And most people don't think that the bishop's just going to go to d1 and post up. And that's exactly what it's going to do. Okay, against bishop to g4, sometimes you could just leave it alone. But I was like, in this game, I want him to take my knight. And after knight d4, bishop d1. I absolutely love this position. I feel like it plays itself. You just attack them aggressively on the king side. Okay, knight to e2. I was like, I'm going to route over. g4. Yeah, and sorry for showing so many of my games recently. I mean, I was going to take a little break from it, but then I went on this little win streak, and I was happy, even though, 2600 on chess.com, life goes on, doesn't really matter. It made me a little proud today, I'm going to say. I got so many brilliant moves today. All right, I'm done talking about myself. Bishop takes f4, d5. Now, I thought for a long time on this move, because I was like, there has to be something here. Like, I was like, can I go bishop g5 and like work the pin and try to add pressure? But then after pawn takes, there's queen d4 check getting out of the pin. So I was like, okay. And I just didn't want to take. I didn't want to push. So then I was like, rook to d1. Luckily, it was a good move, aiming at the queen. So takes, queen b3. Queen b6. That is a discovered attack. But that just allows me to thrust forward with e5. And his knight can't go on the d file. So it goes on the e file, but now again, clamp down on the pawns that they want to push. And I'm aiming in over here at f7. And here I knew I was winning. So bishop takes, and I got a brilliancy, right? Boom, bishop takes f7. The point is, if the king takes, I would take this with check, and then I win that guy, and life is good. So he actually went king h8, and it was harder than I thought here. I took the rook, I took the bishop, and I'm like, okay, that's pinned. But it's a little bit scary, there's chances for black. I went queen to h4 because I can, defend the 8th rank and such. He gives a check. I'm like, okay, I got to coordinate my king against the knight, so there's no checks. Queen to f2, threaten mate in 1, right? I have 41 seconds. He has 2 minutes, so I'm like, simplification is much needed. So we attack the knight, and here I can play this in my sleep. I can pre-move this position. So everything is guarded. I'm like, okay, coordinate my king against the knight, diagonally, space, best coordination when there's one space and you're diagonally across from a knight. I've messed up before just trading rooks for knights and pawns and winning positions. Not this game. We're just going to attack everything, right? Attack the base of the pawn chain, tie his pieces down passively, right? The more passive your opponent, the more active you could be. Now we're going to put him in a little checkmating box. We're going to confine him to the 7th and 8th rank, as you should. He's going to try to get you to take. Do not do that. Keep it confined. And that is what I do. Okay. He goes b4, so he weakens c4. So I attack c4. Caveman chess. We get an exchange. Again, passive defense. Very easy to play against. Again, passive defense. Won't say it's easy to play against, but it is. And he takes the pawn. But again, it's just about simplification. I have 20 seconds. It is enough, luckily, because his king is on the 8th. And I'm going to pick up this pawn, right? Always coordinate your king against the knight. Beware of forks. There are none. And this is just crushing. Both his pieces are on the 8th rank. I cannot get to the 7th on the C file. On the A file, however, can, right? How am I speaking? On the A file, however I can. Bring the rook far from the king, and then it's coordinated. Now, I really like how I did this with 17 seconds, right? The knight is trapped. I've solved puzzles like this. And here, easiest way to win, just sack the rook, and he resigns. Because this is a winning pawn endgame, right? Boop, boop, boop. Make it a rook. Disrespect. So, we're standing at 2604. I think I left my chess slump. And yeah, thank you guys as always for watching. Have a great day. Boom.